Hi guys, my name is Tina Hong.
I'm Anna Ostrowski, and we have Lauren and Michael with us today. I am so excited. So for you guys that don't know this, Lauren has been a friend ever since I was little, really good family friend, and absolutely one of my role models. I absolutely adore her. So we have her and her husband with us. And the reason why we asked them to come on is because a lot has happened for them over the past 3 years of their relationship. And this month is all focused on relationships and communication. So let me give you a little bit of a background. They started dating in November of 2017. They got pregnant with their beautiful baby girl, Ophelia, a year later. Michael proposed in March. Then Ophelia was born in July. And then they got married October 25th. I now found out the exact date, October 25th, 2019. And then, unfortunately, Lauren got let go of her job in September. So then she found a new job in the midst of having a new baby and a new husband. Then they had their wedding scheduled for October 24th, 2020. And then a global pandemic happened, and it's now moved to May of 2021. So holy smokes. Did I get all that right? Did I get all the dates right?
You did. We should just cheers. Like, cheers to that.
But that's a lot. So I think that's where we get started with the first question is, what have you guys learned through after going through all of this stuff?
Well, I still love him. So
that's good. That's good. Yay, cheers.
Cheers. We've learned a lot. And actually, we were doing a really good job. We were actually talking about all the stuff, kind of recapping everything prior to hopping on here. We kind of were like mushed into having to be very communicative very quickly because when we found out we were pregnant, we weren't living together. So we had to like go past third base and straight for the home run to like get our shit together, get aligned, and then really like be kind of on the same page and have open communication before having our little one in July. So what do you want to add?
That's a lot of it. I mean, it's really weird to hear somebody else say back to us what happened to us.
Because it's a lot.
It really is. But I think that actually raises a good point though, because it doesn't, like, all of that stuff happened, but it didn't all happen on the same day. So I think what I learned the most is that you really do, it's so cliche, but you have to take everything day by day, because you can get overwhelmed pretty quickly if you think about all of that stuff happening in a short amount of time. But when you kind of take it day by day, like we did, that helped. I mean, that just helped make us through, because you really got to focus on what can we do right now. But I think the other big thing that I learned was how much resiliency we have as a couple, because I kind of feel like if we can make it through all of that, then everything else should be, easy. No, there's definitely going to be hard times to come in the future too, but I feel like we can rely on the strength that we've forged, over the last couple of years.
And just to add too, not to cut you off, sorry, but like just to add, like we have bad days. Like we're not.
Amen. We all do.
Unicorns and fairies over here. Well, it is in Ophelia's room, but not like literally. Like we have our fair share of bad days, but it's like the longer we're together, and we sound like we're 85 or something like that. I feel like the bad days, they're just, you get over them quicker. You start to like have a better flow of how are we going to handle this. You're just more on the same page and in sync with like, this we don't want to end anything because it's done. We're in this for the long haul. So
yeah. Well, and we've had some moms come on and talk to us before. And one of the things that they always say is, you just do it. Like, you figure it out. Like when you love someone and you want to build this life, you just do it. And so I think that's a point to what Michael said, is that you just have to take it day by day. And right. Like when you love your husband, your wife, and your kiddo, you make it happen. And so cheers to you guys for that, because for sure, it's not always going to be rainbows and unicorns and fairies, whatever's all in Ophelia's room, but you guys made it through. So I think that's a really good point to make. I have a question, but I will let Tina talk because sometimes I tend to just ramble. So Tina, go ahead. Do you have a question?
I'm gonna say that, like what you were saying, we made it through it, right? Y'all hit so many, I would say, like big things, pretty squished in. Most people, I would say, like to stretch it out, right? But I think if you've handled all that, we've joked about, if you make it through the pandemic in your relationship, like it's gonna gonna make it for the long haul. So I just want to say that's awesome, and that you formed a really good foundation. Go ahead, Anna.
So you guys talked a lot about being on the same page with stuff. Let's talk about that for a second, because Tina and I aren't even dating or married or have babies, and sometimes we're not on the same page with stuff. And I'm like, girl, let's just do this. And that can be frustrating sometimes. And she can get frustrated with me sometimes about stuff. And we're nowhere near the level that you guys are. So how do you handle that?
I'll let you go.
Yeah.
Tina, I love you though, by the way. Tina, I love you. You know that.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of it comes down to preemptive conversations, especially when it comes to parenting. I think it's really important, and we've done a good job of talking about like, what kind of parents do we want to be? How are we going to handle this situation when it comes up? And those sorts of things. But, you can only prepare so much, because there's a lot of things that you just don't know are going to be a problem until they're right in front of you. And, and that's where communication is really important, where you have to like really devote time to figuring things out, and you have to consciously decide, we're going to talk about this and figure out what we want to do, because you're always winging it as a parent, but you don't want to feel like you're winging it. You want to feel like
I love how you told the truth.
Yeah.
It's so true though.
You want to feel
So
like there's a
true.
plan, so you got to have kind of like the framework of a plan, or the skeleton of a plan. And when unexpected things come up, then you feel a little more prepared for it. But at the same time, there's only so much you can really think about ahead of time,
Right.
that you can possibly talk about and plan about with parenting. It just happens. It comes at you too fast.
I think to add to that too, one of the things in regards to like not being on the same page, me early on in our relationship, like we had both been with people prior to both of us meeting, which is pretty normal. But we had learned from mistakes in the past that we knew we didn't want to carry into our current relationship. Something like that, like an example would be like, if you're in public and somebody does something wrong and you overreact like in front of friends, and then your friends see like the chaos that's happening. And like, there are some people that they thrive for that. It's totally what they need to do. But neither of us we're in good places when things like that would happen. And like, not saying that we both, haven't had our mishaps of like, reacting in public or in front of people where people will see like, they're not on the same page. But we definitely try to be very respectful of the present. So like, if I say something about like what Ophelia can do, or even just like for the two of us, if it's in front of people and then there's a disagreement about it, we'll talk about it afterwards in the privacy of our home or in the car. So just being very mindful and being respectful of the now, and then not holding a grudge too, if that makes sense.
Because you guys have gone through a lot, Lauren losing her job, Michael, you're a teacher in the middle of a pandemic. Like, you guys have a baby girl, and it's, I believe, correct me if I'm wrong, the first grandchild for both of y'all's families.
Yeah.
Right. So like, there's a lot of different pressures going on. And I know me personally, when I'm in a relationship and it's like, I can only give 10% right now, you want that partner to be that rock for you. But what happens, because it sounds like you guys have had moments where you've both only been able to give that 10%. Like, how do you guys, do you get what I'm saying? Am I wording that
Mhm.
Oh,
okay?
for
Do you
sure.
get
For
what I'm saying?
sure.
There are lots of days where it feels like we just pass each other in the hall and say hi in our own house because we're so busy with our job commitments and parenting and if our daughter is sick, that doesn't eliminate all of the other chores that have to get done around the house and the fact that we need to sleep and that we still need to work. And so there are a lot of times where it does feel like we're roommates or something. We just like see each other in the house and say hi, and then we're somebody has the kid, somebody's doing something else. It happens though. It's
No, I
like
know.
reality, and so it's really, really important.
It turns into this like, sometimes we have to stop for a minute. Like, I've been trying to be really mindful of stopping, pausing, and being like, I haven't hugged you today. Let me go hug you. And like I've ran up a couple of times in the last week, and like, you're really good at doing that as well. Just taking a moment to be like, even if Ophelia's pulling down the fireplace, whatever else is going on, she just taking a moment to be in the now and acknowledge each other. So
Yeah, that's definitely a big thing is cherishing the little moments and like having little routines, because it is hard to have a few hours in a row together right now.
When was the last date night we had?
I don't
I
know.
was just about to ask you guys that, because like one of my biggest fears when getting married, I guess, and having children would be, once I have children, you always hear like, oh, you're no longer paying attention to your spouse anymore, paying attention to your child. And then that relationship shrivels up and then divorce happens, something like that. Do y'all dedicate time to each other like that? Because you just said like, when was the last date night? You know what I mean?
For sure. Good question. I think we do. Like, we're very cognizant of like, hey, let's just plan to do this. Even if it doesn't end up being exactly what we planned, like we know this night on this day, we plan to, after she goes to bed, we're going to try to watch a movie, probably fall asleep halfway through, but we're trying.
Yeah, that's the hard part is not scheduling the time. The hard part is staying up until 9 o'clock.
Yeah.
That's where it gets difficult. But like, yeah, I mean, the key to that for us is two things, I think. One is like, we have to take advantage of the small moments, the little, because we're not going to have like a whole night to ourselves. It's just not happening right now. So like, when we get 10 minutes, what are we going to do? Or like, can we really make the most of that 10 minutes? Or having little routines like, just you never leave without a kiss, or something like that. Like, that's really important. And it's very small, but I think important. And the other part of that, yeah, she does too. And the other thing that I think we've learned, and it's almost counterintuitive, but we also have learned that it's really important that we have alone time as well. And like, that is huge, because both of us are the kind of people who are going to sacrifice everything that we want to do personally for the family. We are all going to, like, both of us are going to completely ignore everything that we want to do, if it's in the best interest of our daughter or in the best interest of our family unit. And I think we probably did sacrifice too much for a while. And it took us a bit to learn, like, it's actually really important that I go into the basement for an hour and a half once a week, and just leave all the problems upstairs and I go downstairs. No, but it's counterintuitive, because it's like, you're really busy. How is ignoring everything and doing something that seems frivolous, like just playing guitar alone in the basement for a couple hours, like, how is that helping? But it really does, because then when I walk up the stairs, I am a much better person and much more patient and much more ready to tackle all of the issues that are gonna come our way.
Even encourage him to go, because like I have the luxury of working from home, and like, so I'm home 100% right now. I've never been to the office, but we'll get on that at a different topic. I'm home 100% by myself. So like I have the luxury to go for walks. I have the luxury to go take a run to Target. And if I need to actually go inside to get something, I can take an extra 15 minutes and do a lap and like have some alone time. So me recognizing that, and like, even though it's not at night, like after, you know, Ophelia gets home or any of that, like I do a lot of stuff by myself. In turn, I feel like I had been selfish up until like most recently, because I'm like craving that, hey, hang out with me. I haven't seen people all day. And the people I did see, I have to be 6 feet away from them and I can't talk to them because they're strangers and like all these things. So I've been very like, at least we both have been very like positive in the sense of like trying to have alone time, but I feel like I've tried to push to the two of us scheduling our alone time, like especially if we're starting to feel overwhelmed, like, hey, we have a shared calendar, put on the day that you want to actually like spend an hour and a half doing whatever the heck you want to do. So
yeah, I'm sorry.
No, go ahead.
Go ahead, Michael.
You kind of, it can be very easy in like, even in just a relationship where it's just two people and no child, you can kind of lose your identity a little bit, you know, because in any relationship, if you live with somebody, especially, you make a million tiny compromises a day.
Yep.
From like, I think we should fold towels this way. You think we should fold towels that way. Okay, we'll do it that way. Fine. You know, we'll fold the towels your way, I guess.
It sounds minor, but it's a big one.
but you do, but you do that like a couple hundred times a day when you live with someone, you know. It's towels here. It's like, how many scoops of coffee do we put in the morning? Like, that's a thing, you know, that's a compromise you end up making. And then you get a kid involved, and now all of a sudden, like, you don't even matter as the parents anymore.
No.
It's like you put everything into the kid. It's all about what the kid wants. And then it can be really easy to forget, like, what did I used to do with my time? You know, like, what did I
had that thought the other day. I was like, I don't have a hobby. I used to paint, I used to draw, I was super into exercising. And I had this moment where I was like, maybe I should take up knitting. And like, I started looking at like knitting beginner sets, because I was like, I can do that like in between meetings. Like, why not?
Well, it's really important for, like, I think all parents and anybody in relationship, like, you have to have multiple identities. You have to be a mom, a dad, a husband, a wife, but you also have to be like, you were somebody before you were those things too.
Yeah.
You have to continue to be that person as well. And that's hard. But like I said, that's kind of something we've learned, is that you need to devote time for yourself.
Yeah.
I love that. I was going to ask a question, but I don't know if it's changing gears.
Can I say one? I'm going to say one thing before you ask that question, because I wrote down a couple things that you guys said. So it's interesting that you guys talked a little bit about some of that alone time, because Tina and I talked about that in our last episode, how it's really important to have some of that independence. And one thing that we've heard from other people that we've had on too, and something that I always say is, like, you can't pour from an empty cup, right? So you can't be the best mom or the best wife if you haven't filled your cup up and made sure that you're taking care of yourself first. Like, you can't give 100% when you only have 10% left in you to give. And so I think that's a really good point, and something, a huge lesson that you guys said that you learned early on, that's going to help a ton moving forward. And I love, Lauren, kudos to you for realizing too, that like, Michael needs that time, even though like you're home and you're like, because I get that. I'm the same way. I'm like, just talk to me, just talk to me.
Yes.
But it's, you recognize that. And then the other thing that you guys talked about too, that I really liked, was talking about those little things, right? Those little habits that you guys do in really making the most, whether it's 5 minutes or 5 hours, you make the most of that time together. And I think that's something that a lot of people forget, because they become complacent and they start focusing on themselves and they're, you know, so a lot of kudos to you guys for realizing those things. And I'm sure it was not easy realizing some of those things. And I know that there's more things to learn down the road, but I think those things that you guys just talked about is such fantastic advice that I think are so basic that we sometimes don't remember, but it's really important. So I appreciate that.
It's really true, Anna. Like a lot of the more basic things that I don't know why I was thinking about this today, but it's like something like you can hear it being said, you can acknowledge what's being said, but then it's the act of doing. And like so many people get like caught up in the act and like that part, that like one step of like, but if I do this, then you start to think of the ripple effect. And it's like, well, don't think about that. Like, just do it. Be okay with the fact that something may not go according to plan, but you had that extra like 5 to 10 minutes for yourself, or as a couple, like for ourselves to have that extra 5 to 10 minutes, and it was worth the world.
Yeah,
so.
Absolutely. Tina, what was your question?
Well, I had basically was echoing a lot of what you said that I loved about, them talking about the relationship. One thing that I was curious about was if y'all naturally had that similar love language, because you mentioned like, I don't leave the house before kissing the other person, and I'll take time to give the other person a big hug. So like me and my significant other like maybe have conflicting. I had to learn what his style was, and now I address it, but it doesn't come naturally. Does that make sense?
For sure.
So was that something that was like, y'all just happen to have the same love language, or you're recognizing that that's also important to the other person?
Oh, I'm super touchy-feely.
That's usually guys number one.
If you're friends with Anna, like this is how our families work.
Our families are all like that. We love
exactly
with physical touch.
You hug even if you're not a hugger.
Yeah, it doesn't matter. You hug me. Like front hug too, not a side hug. It's a good front hug.
It's big bear hug.
Yeah, I actually not that long ago read the Love Languages book.
Yay!
And as I read that, I was like, oh yeah, I'm definitely the physical touch, right? And so, and like that totally, and definitely for Lauren too. And after reading it, like I went to the website and did the quiz too, and I was like, oh, like it was like physical touch, and then maybe I don't even remember what my number 2 was.
Conversations, I would think too.
Oh yeah, for sure. And both, and then I had you take the quiz. And you had the same top 2 as me, and we both had gifts at the bottom, like gift giving. So I was like, all right, well, we'll just skip Christmas next year then. No, but it was interesting to like, I guess it just confirmed something that we already knew. But I think our little routine that like I think is cool, that I always really appreciate, is like when we're out somewhere or we're having conversations with other people, or we're hanging out with friends or things like that, like she'll always like grab one of my fingers, just give it a little squeeze, and that's like, nobody sees it, but that's like a little way to say I love you without anybody noticing or without having to say it. And like, so that's like a little thing that we do that I think I really appreciate, and it's just like a cool little moment that nobody sees or notices, and it's just like our little thing.
Your little secret, like love language. No,
yeah.
And then you read and sought that out by your own doing, or are you guys continually trying to work on the relationship and explore how to make it better? Was it, you know what I mean? Because I feel like that's probably like me always like pushing this stuff on my boyfriend. I'm like, you need to read this, you need to.
Yeah, I didn't make you read it.
No, he was like, I read this, and so one thing about Michael, the difference between us, he's very school and like scholarly, and I'm not. So, and I appreciate that about him, but it's hard because I would love to read all these articles. I just like, my brain is more of like a working brain. Like I need to do something, or like just show me a PowerPoint and I'm fine. But I did take the quiz, so I didn't read it. He read it. But it's been nice though, because I think in taking that quiz and him taking time to read about just the love language in general, and then like other things that we've read in general just on our own time, you pick up pieces and you're like, hey, we should instill doing that. We should have a hobby together. Just making sure whatever it is we learn, at the end of the day, just listening to each other and being like, hey, I learned about this. Let's try to do this. Or what are your thoughts on this? It's just like a good open communication that we have with each other. So
It really sounds like you guys do have that.
I think we do.
Yeah, I think so. I mean,
Michael's like,
no, but something I think is important to bring up too is like it's not always perfect. Like
no.
Something that I think we've learned more recently, like during the pandemic, is that okay, so I used to think that the ultimate like form of enlightenment was that you never react poorly to something, that you're always, whenever something happens, like you approach that situation from a perfectly calm and rational state of mind. I think I spent a lot of my life trying to get to that, and now I've just given up and been like, nope, I'm going to be short and snippy sometimes, and I'm going to be mad for no reason. But then like I need to just acknowledge, or I need to know, I'm not mad at Lauren, I'm just hungry. Or like,
oh, that's the worst.
She didn't really do anything
hangry.
wrong. I'm just tired because Ophelia kept us up all night, or something like that. Like it's not. So I've learned, it's not like not having arguments is not a sign of a good relationship. Like arguments should happen, need to happen.
yeah.
But the stupid arguments, those can happen too, as long as they don't linger, as long as you deal with it in the moment, and then pretty shortly afterwards realize that happened because I'm tired, or because she's tired, or because like I'm stressed from work, or she's upset about something else that's happening and taking it out on me, or like once you realize like, okay, I actually caused that because I am not in a good place right now, I'm tired and cranky.
I think something we've been really good at, and Anna, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off. But like something we've been really good at was acknowledging and apologizing. And you're not apologizing to be like, oh, I'm so sorry for interrupting your conversation, or I'm sorry for doing this. But just like truly being apologetic for acting like a asshole. But acknowledging it too, because so like Michael mentioned earlier, when he gets upset, he shuts down, whereas I do the opposite. But like, I will be like, why are you quiet? What's going on? Are you mad at me? What do we do? What's going on? And I like rapid fire. And it's so,
I think that's all women. I think that's all women.
Okay, good. I'm glad I'm not the only one. But I feel so bad because I can just see it on his face where he's like, stop talking to me. I'm just processing.
Yep.
So I feel bad. So even though he was the one who was like maybe originally upset about something, and this is just an example, this is not real life right now. But like, even though he may have been the one that's upset about something, and then I'm like provoking him to get more angry and go into that like dark hole of Mordor, I in turn want to apologize because like I didn't help the situation. I don't feel that I need to. I know I want to apologize, and that's the difference there. Knowing you want to be a good partner and to continue that good conversation, because it can get hard. It's hard. We're winging it. We're just winging it.
No, but I think that's a
like
good
angry
point.
or anything, like you finish the argument before the end of the night or something like that.
Yeah, we really don't like to go to bed angry, and I don't think we ever do.
It's a good rule.
No, yeah, I think that's huge. So like
We bang it
you
out.
deal with it now when it's there, and then
Sorry.
don't drag it into.
I love it. Y'all just said your love language is physical touch, so that's a good thing.
Yeah, I see.
No,
Okay,
I think you guys, I have a question based on what you guys just said though, is recognizing, well, first of all, Lauren, you're definitely not alone in the fact that you start doing like, kind of like, it's almost like a hamster wheel where you keep going round and round and round because you know that they're upset. And then all of a sudden it's like, well, now I'm going to get upset and then I'm going to ask them questions and it's just going to get worse. And then it's all this things over and over and over again.
Yeah.
I think that's every female. At least I know I'm like that for sure. So let me ask you this though. And then I know Tina has a question for you guys, but let me ask you this real quick. The fact that you're able to recognize that it's not Michael or it's not Lauren that's really pissing you off. It's because a kid at school was awful, or a coworker was shitty, or Ophelia's just in a bad, or you're hungry. Like the maturity level, I think that it takes to recognize that is very high. Is that something that y'all learned on your own, or is that something that you guys learned because you kind of called each other out for it in a way?
Good question. Do you want to go first?
I think, I don't know. I think I learned that on my own. I don't want to take too much credit for it. If you feel like you she's like, no, behind the scenes, I was doing a lot of work on this guy.
So something that I wanted to change immediately about myself as I was getting older, and I'm not that old, I'm only 31, but I'd been through a lot. I had seen a lot of relationships, and there were a lot of things that I saw, and I was like, you know how like when you don't feel good about something and you can feel it in your gut and you're like, this is not how I want to feel. I had really bad anxieties, and like that stemmed into depression. Like I noticed when I would react to people, or like how I would communicate to people, like I was just putting on a front, because I'm like, no, I just need to put like, hey, I'm okay, like really I'm fine, but I don't want to talk about the real issue. And when I branched out on my own, left Wisconsin for a couple of years, I kind of learned quickly, I don't want to just put on a face. Like people need to see me for my true authentic self. And that was something that I took very strong for myself coming into my relationship with Michael.
Both Lauren and Tina work at Northwestern Mutual. This is something I forgot to say in my intro. So Miss Tina, of course, has a quick financial question for y'all. So Tina, bring it on.
Okay, so I think you honestly, I'm like, man, they mastered relationships. We should have talked to them before we did our like single talk.
Yeah, you guys should have talked before Tina and I did our relationships, because our relationships is shit compared to y'all talking about it.
I listened to it and I liked it, so stop.
Well, what I feel like you guys mastered, I would say the three biggest things that I often hear that can ruin a relationship, or the top core of them. One, you already mentioned that communication is key, right? That we already know that can ruin a relationship. Passion, which you said physical touch is y'all's main love language, so that's awesome. And then the last one is generally like finances can really mess up a relationship. So walk us through, like, how was that conversation? Or is one person like, hey, that's where you're awesome at, and just thanks for filling me in, or is it like a joint decision making? Like, how do y'all do that? Or spending, those are common things.
Sure. Yeah. I think that so far in our relationship, it has been something that I maybe took control of.
I allowed him to.
And she allowed me to, right? It wasn't like I forced it, but I think it was something where I knew I maybe had a little more knowledge and experience with some of those issues. And so it was.
He's more mature in financing than I am. I was. I'm getting better.
But he's a teacher. He likes this stuff.
I let you say that. No, she's good. No, we're good. But we have different like kind of philosophies about it.
Yeah.
And I think it's actually, it definitely does lead to like minor conflicts, but overall is a good thing, because I think I'm always thinking long term, maybe to a fault. Because there are times where like Lauren will buy stuff and I'll be like, why'd you buy that? We don't need that. And then I'm like, oh wait, no.
But we do.
But if we didn't have that, we would, what would we do? We need that thing, whatever it was. So I'm kind of like always long-term, and Lauren's like always right now.
Yeah.
And like, so yeah, there's definitely, we definitely have the types of, like minor conflicts that I think everybody has, where it's like, purchases that I thought were unnecessary, but she thinks we need it for right now. And I'm like, I'd rather have that money in the savings account for the future, blah, blah, blah. Those kinds of things.
What's my line? I have a line that I say every time I buy something that like isn't really necessary.
Oh, you do?
What do I say? I say something to the effect of like, this happens repeatedly. And Michael pointed it out the other day and he's like, don't go to the store and just be like, well, we just needed this because of X, Y, and Z reason.
Well, I just thought.
Well, I just thought we needed this because we're having a really bad day.
Well,
I'm like, what's $5 extra? That's fine.
She makes it so sweet. Like, well,
I know.
just thought this.
I know.
Yeah. You have to teach Ophelia about finances. I won't.
Well, I always ask that because people always come to me like, hey, what is normal? What are normal things in relationships? And we often talk about, I have like 4 basic strategies. These are successful ways that relationships are in finances. This approach, or this approach. What approach do y'all like of these successful approaches, right? Mm-hmm. I love that y'all talked about that. That's a really interesting conversation.
Yeah, but I think the thing that we've like kind of come to that really works for us is that, and this is a habit we are not very good at keeping up with and need to be better, but like at one point we decided, let's set aside Monday and Thursday every week, and like we're gonna go through our checking account and we're going
That's a lot. And I'm pregnant to planning. That's too many days.
That's a lot. Good for you.
The other thing we try to do is to not use credit cards. So that's a huge one that I think a lot of couples sometimes struggle with. I know we have our faults. Not 100% perfect. Me. But but we do Michael's really good at acknowledging like, hey, let's go look through this. I need to be better to just come over and sit by you, go through
I think with lots of couples, a successful method when you're having kind of like your long-term, your super short-term kind of strategy, there's a great balance there. There truly is. And you have to appreciate that. It sounds like you appreciate that he's more of the analytical on the financial side, right? And you worry about it today. So there's a lot of importance in today too. But I think a successful strategy that works often is like when you're budgeting fund money, meaning, Lauren, you can go spend whatever you want, $100 or whatever a week, and if you decide not to spend it this week, then it just stocks up to the next week. There's, and then if you choose to spend all 400 at the end of the month, that was your budgeted, so that you can't get mad. And if Michael wants to hang on to his 400 and invest it instead, that's his 400. He can do whatever he wants, like. There's lots of successful relationships that find that it could be $50, it could be whatever, but you can't get mad at the fund money. Mm-hmm. So that's
very true.
Absolutely.
That's very true.
She has that with me too. So Tina's my financial advisor and she gives me allotted fund money every month.
Yes.
So
you said you wanted to travel. We should put money in.
Yeah.
Like we'll tell her.
It works. It works. But we have kept you guys way over time. But before we wrap up, I do want to ask, is there anything else that you guys want to talk about or share at all before we close out? Because I feel like you have dropped so much information and I just fell in love with you guys more than I even knew that I could, because I already adore you too. So is there anything else?
Relationship notes.
Yeah, look at all Tina's notes.
Need to get married.
So is there anything else though that you guys want to talk about?
Something I would definitely, one of my best friends told me this about her and her husband when they had first started dating, then got engaged. Like they've been together like 8 years now. Mm-hmm. And she said, I was like, how do you guys do it? Like, how do you do it? What the hell? And she's like, I admire him. I really admire him. And she was like, find somebody who you truly admire. And when I met Michael and we had gone on a couple dates and things started to progress, like it progressed quickly for us, which was, I think, kind of a shock, but it was just natural. I knew right away, like I admired him and like, I knew I wanted to like, continue to just, I don't know, grow with him as a person. Like when you find that person you want to grow with, it's like really cool. Cause it's like, you can still be allowed to grow yourself, but it's two growing as a couple. You don't have to be connected at the hip, like going pee together, but like you can definitely like.
That's the example.
It was the first thing that came to my mind because like pee.
We don't
But,
do
like,
that.
We don't do that.
We don't do that.
But like you can, but just like, but just wanting to grow together, I think is the best thing.
This was fantastic. I'm so glad that I got to see you guys. Enjoy the rest of your night. We kept you up past your bedtime, and we'll talk to you
Tina,
later.
it was great to meet you, and you guys. Oh, Anna, always a pleasure to see you.